Are we going to have a quorum tonight?
I hope so. I don't know why we wouldn't. Do you remember if we said 5:30 or 5:45? Because I, for some reason, thought it was 5:45, but then when they were shooting the link text around about the link, somebody had said 5:30, and so I was like, oh, okay, whoops, I must have written the wrong time down or something. So maybe that's why.
Paige, I actually thought it was at 5 is what I had written down.
Well, I saw that in the text and I was like, uh-oh. Because I've got so many meetings this week, I can't remember what times they all are. So, I mean, I write them down, but then I'm like, maybe I wrote the wrong time down. I don't know.
I thought it was at 5:45, but I saw your text stream and it said 5:30, so I started the meeting early.
Vanessa said she's in the waiting room. Do you see her?
Yes.
Okay. So is Cheryl. Oh, there she is. Okay. I'm in my car, or else I would be on video.
Can someone change my name to my name?
Yes.
Thank you. Let's see. Has Casey made it on or no? Is my video? Oh, she closed it again.
Casey just asked if the password was the same as before.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. EACS. Oh, but capital. Does that matter?
Yes. I actually I don't know. I think it might matter.
I think it might.
There she is.
Oh, Cheryl has a fancy background.
Better than the mess that you would see.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, we are all here. And the YouTube link is live. So let's go ahead and call to order at 5:34. Does anyone have anything they would like to revise or prioritize on the agenda? Seeing no changes, the agenda is approved as written. Next is public input. Does anyone have anyone that contacted you for public input? For any?
I have something, but I'm gonna need about 75 seconds because I'm driving and I have to pull it up. So if there's anybody else, they can go second.
That's so long.
I have two.
Oh, okay.
people
Well, then Missy can go
contact me.
first, and then I'll go after that once I get to piano.
All right. You ready for me?
Yes.
You can hear me. Okay. The first one is from Stacy Monker, our 4th grade teacher. And it says, to the members of the APB, I have some serious concerns about adding a 7th and 8th grade to our school. I think that this is being rushed through without a thorough vetting of numbers and curriculum. We can't compete with Mirror Lake as it stands. We have a fabulous 6th grade and we cannot enroll a full class. Greening is going to open in the fall, all new and shiny. We cannot begin to offer a comparable experience. We do not have sports, extracurricular activities, including travel clubs, STEM facilities, intense special education programs, library, electives, foreign language programs, honor programs, extensive music band and orchestra, art and applied tech. We do have expectations of uniforms and social behavior that they simply outgrow. Most of our students are excited to leave and go and spread their wings. They look forward to lockers, changing classes, chatting in the hall, and having new diverse friends and experiences. We will be fully funding 2 under-enrolled classrooms. That is not a wise use of our money. There are too many unanswered questions to push this through in such a hurried manner. In short, we will be shortchanging our students by keeping them here. There is so much more to a well-rounded education than simply academics. Thanks for your consideration. Stacy Monker. The second public input that I have is from our 3rd grade long-term sub, Heather Caldwell. I feel a second K through 3 class would benefit families more than a 7th and 8th grade. The 7th and 8th grade would be hard to fill and hard to compete with the middle school electives like music, sports, especially music. Social preparation would not be good for high school. The rules and expectations, i.e. quiet in the halls, uniforms, class changes, navigating lockers, the lack of that will prepare our students for high school. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Okay, Paige, are you ready?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready. Took me a little more than 75 seconds to get here, but I'm here now. This is from Prairie Doherty. She is a 5th grade parent. She sent me an
Sorry, did you say a
email.
5th grade parent?
Yes, current 5th grade, I believe 3rd and 5th grade parent. She said, I wanted to reach out and thank you for leading the cause to help Eagle Academy expand into 7th and 8th grade. I wanted to let you know that I fully support the idea and I'm happy to help in whatever capacity. Your committees are probably already made, but in case you need more help, I want to help. I'm in the middle of it, that you don't need to read that part. I would love to see things in place for him, her 5th grader, for him to stay there for 7th and 8th grade. Thank you so much for all you do for school and the community. Then I responded to her and asked her if I could read it for public input. And then she replied and said, yes, whatever helps the cause to expand the school, yes, please share it. I have other children who have been through both Mirror Lake and Greening, and the situation there is not ideal at all. If we had another better option, I would totally have taken advantage of it. And I know so many other moms who would too choose kids or who would too, okay, the grammar, hold on. So many other moms who have kids not even at Eagle Academy who would have wanted to be at Eagle Academy. I have been so impressed with how Eagle Academy operates. It would be so welcome to have a better option for our kids. I have often thought, after all these years of investing in the best possible education we can give them in elementary school, how sad when so much of it gets lost or undermined when they get thrown to the wolves in middle school. I would love to see the values, virtues, and high standard qualities of Eagle Academy carried through to our children in the middle school years until they have become more established in knowing who they are, so that can be their very best for high school and beyond. Thank you for carrying the torch. I fully support you. That's it.
All right, thank you. And thank you to all of those who gave input. Does anyone have any other public input? No. Thought I have to scroll my screen. And no. Okay. On to new business, 7th and 8th grade expansion. So I think I sent out information earlier today, so hopefully you all got it, but I want to also go through it verbally for the meeting so the public can hear what we've kind of come up with, and then to go into discussion, I'll need someone to make a motion. So you can all hear me, right?
This is Casey, all motion.
Okay. You what now? What?
I said all motion. Did you want motion to go into a meeting to discuss
Oh no,
the expansion?
No, I'm gonna
What?
present it first and then we can motion after that.
Okay.
Oh man. Okay. Am I frozen for anyone?
No.
You're not. Okay. Oh. Okay. I'm not frozen. Okay. It said my internet was unstable. All right. So, I guess to start out, it might seem rushed, and our intention was not to rush it, but found out that to have it start next year in the fall of 2021, it has to make a June State Board of Education meeting if the Anchorage School Board approves our proposal. Otherwise, it's not going to happen next fall. And And it isn't a brand new idea. It's been considered 2 or 3 times before, to the point of floor plans being drawn up with the landlord, schedules kind of cooked up, and the big barriers before were a district requirement to have, I'm probably getting the wording wrong, like the specialized or certificated in that subject. So then you would have to end up hiring 4 to 7 teachers. So that was a barrier. And then the other barrier was a budget, but we have been able to save enough to pick up some of the slack that we may be looking at. Recommendations when we were working in the committee was to keep the curriculum similar to our current program, because the more we're doing a continuation of what we already do, the more well received it's going to be that we're presenting a different option than what's already done at the district. So what we talked about in the curriculum or in the committee was doing language arts, keeping the Spalding method and basis for that would be the primary for instruction, and novels would be used to hit the reading portions of standards, and contemporary and classic novels both to be chosen from. And then we would be meeting the district standards for 7th and 8th grade language arts for grammar, writing, and those areas. And then Mindy had put a scope and sequence together that was emailed to everyone. And for math, it was the recommendation to stick with Saxon. So our 5th graders already do course 1, 6th graders already do course 2. So the 7th level would be doing course 3, and 8th level would be doing algebra, and any one leveling up in 8th grade would be doing geometry. I don't remember if that was using Saxon geometry or the district geometry, if anyone remembers that. Of Paige or Mindy or Deanne.
So would it be using Saxon for
Saxon
all
still?
of the others?
Okay. And then the social studies, we didn't have a solid direction yet. The district has standards, and there's our world geography for 7th grade and US history for 8th grade. So considerations we were looking at was using the district curriculum, which isn't really, well, we can get into discussion. So using district curriculum, we weren't sure what that is though. And then taking our 5th grade book and spreading it through 5th and 6th grade, and going more in depth in the topics, and taking the 6th grade book and spreading that through 7th and 8th grade and going more in depth in the topics. But just discovered last night, our curriculum, while the version we use was published by Pearson Learning, it's core knowledge, and core knowledge has their own thing going right now. They're not under a mass curriculum producer, and they are in the process of writing middle school social studies, and the 7th grade one is coming soon. So that is an option for 7th and 8th grade as they get those done. Science, we didn't have a solid direction in that yet either. Kind of the same options to use the district curriculum, find another curriculum, and use our 5th grade book and spread it over 5th and 6th, and use our 6th grade book and spread it over 7th and 8th. We kind of talked about electives, and I think it was like, we haven't decided fully, but majority preference. So 2 things, we have to teach PE and we have to teach health. So PE has to be taught for 1.5 semesters and health for half a semester. There are K-8 programs that follow a traditional middle school and do PE every day. And there are K-8 programs that follow more like their own elementary program, and they do PE twice a week. So I would think if they can do PE twice a week, we could too. And that was kind of our preference. You'll see my internet says unstable again. Can you all still hear me and I'm not frozen? You all.
I can still hear everything.
Yep, you're good.
Yeah.
She's frozen now.
As
Oh,
we
now
said that,
she
she
is.
freezes. There you are.
I froze, it closed, reopened itself. Okay, now you can all hear me.
Mhm.
Okay. Where did you hear me stop?
We got everything.
Oh no, is it frozen again?
I don't know if she can hear us.
Yeah.
I can now.
Okay. We heard all the thing about the PE and
Okay.
That we could do it 2 days a week. Right. If
Okay.
they do.
Oh, what is wrong with my internet over here? If I move it, stop this. Okay. Get my phone off the Wi-Fi. I'm not doing anything on it, but okay. So our preference in the committee was doing the 2 times a week option, and you'll see when we talk about the schedule why. And we talked about doing a music as an elective, and based on how a schedule would work, and there was preference for a foreign language more regularly than there was music. We thought we were leaning towards asking Mrs. Harple to do an after-school program, and maybe do 5th through 8th grade can participate in like a band and orchestra or a choir or something like that. And then that would still provide the opportunity for those interested, and with the bigger pool, because we have tried that before, you know, with just like 4th, 5th, and 6th or 5th and 6th, but it's such a small group of kids that you don't really get a band or an orchestra or a full choir. So that was something we were considering. There was a lot of the feedback in the community survey, which I sent a copy of too, was for a foreign language. And I think I am sharing this correctly, but Deanne can correct me. If you do a full year of language in 7th grade and a full year in 8th grade, then you can, is it testing into it in high school? And it gives you high school credit. And then you can start at a higher level in high school rather than have to take beginning again.
It's not a test, so you have to take
Not a test. Okay.
4 consecutive semesters in the same language. And then you actually have to take the 2nd year in high school and get a C or better. And at the end of that year, they will add they'll bring up the middle school credit and make it a high school foreign language credit.
Okay. So there was a benefit that way. And we talked about doing French, Spanish, or German, because we're pretty sure that both Chugiak and Igor High School offer all those 3, as I had 3 considerations for teaching it. If we were to happen to hire that grade level, a 7th or 8th grade level teacher that could teach a language, or if we could find a teacher that would be willing to come in for just a period or 2 periods to teach the foreign language. Absent being able to find either of those, doing a district approved online program for that. So it would just need a teacher sponsor, so the grade level teacher, or possibly a specials teacher as the teacher sponsor, overseeing the class as they do that. And then electives that rotate quarterly. So based on teacher preference of what they would be comfortable teaching, if they had any special skills or just some of the options we threw out was keyboarding, but piano keyboarding, I believe, not like typing keyboarding, home ec, debate, government, art, yearbook, computer programming, coding. And we had, I don't remember if we talked about it or not, but it could be for people who want more like class and teacher switching. So 7th grade teacher is teaching this, 8th grade teacher is teaching this. It's the same period. So between the 7th and 8th grade, the students could pick between the two what their preference would be. And then the schedule, I attached a draft schedule. We had 2 we were looking at the committee meeting on Monday. And then after we had discussed everything about like the foreign language and the electives, Paige drafted up another one, and I made it a little more generic than hers was, since we hadn't picked a foreign language or a specific electives. But that would look like, does anyone want to share it so you can see, people can see what it looks like?
I would, but it says the host disabled screen sharing for me. So I can't share.
Cut off.
She did.
Nobody has screen sharing capabilities right now. It wasn't cut off. Would you like screen sharing capabilities?
If you want me to share it, yes, please.
You do now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so in the expansion folder.
Oh, I didn't load it in there. So I sent it in an email.
Oh, it's
Yeah, it's in the, it has the 7/8 in the title.
Okay.
And then we'll just look at the first quarter one, because I just realized I didn't change the time slots on the other ones. So on the
yeah.
one to what Paige had done.
You have to flip the PE and the foreign language, because the foreign language teacher can't teach this 2 foreign language classes at the same time. And the PE teacher won't be able to teach PE at the same time to 2 grade levels.
Yeah. It's not perfect.
And then also I did notice that on the 7th grade, it has social studies at 10 and then science at 140 for 7th grade, and then 8th grade swap, but for none of the other quarters does it do that.
I know, that's why I said I forgot to copy and paste the first one to the other ones. So we're just looking at the first one.
Got it.
Okay, so what we were thinking of was something like this. So having an hour and a half of language arts, and then if there's any 6th graders leveling up to the 7th and 8th level, they would go back and do independent work in their grade level, while the 7th and 8th go to their next schedule, which would be the science and social studies block. And then we talked about, so that there's some kind of class switching or changing classes, not always the same teacher for the 7th and 8th grade, one to teach science and one to teach social studies. And then keeping the math block mostly in line with ours. So anyone leveling from 6th grade would only have like a 10-minute wait for that level to start. And then a foreign language period, and then lunch/recess. If our PE isn't every day, I think we still have to provide some kind of time for them to be able to have movement per that statute about movement. And then a science/social studies block again, and then an elective. And while we don't have sports, we were recommending that and the students interested in participating in middle school sports. It says my internet's unstable again. Am I frozen, or can you all hear me still?
We can hear you.
Okay. You're all frozen on my screen.
Can you hear me?
You can still hear me? Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay. And I have a
Okay.
thumbs up picture. Oh, you're moving again. Okay. Sorry. So our recommendation was that kids who wanted to participate in middle school sports, because you can, if you're attending a charter school, participate in your area middle school sports. So any students wanting to do that would be dismissed at that elective/PE time. Although with the PE health requirement, they may still have to do reading or homework for that. And then some other notes in there. So the elective period would be the elective 3 times a week and PE the 2 times a week. And then we were putting teacher planning during the PE twice a week, and then depending on how the foreign language is taught during that block, and 7th and 8th grade could switch teachers classes for science and social studies, and then electives would be subject to change based on the teacher's abilities and strengths. So that is what we were looking at for a schedule, which again is not perfect and might need some playing with, but that's what we had kind of come up with. And then letters of intent on the survey we sent to our school community. We had 19 people that were willing to sign a letter of intent to use as proof of interest in the program. And Paige put a public survey out so that local community members can take it. I don't know if you have any updated numbers from that page.
Let me pull it up right now and see. Except don't look there in that folder. Here, there it is. So as of our committee meeting, no, it's still the same number of people that answered it. So when we had our committee meeting, it was 13 people had responded. So
Okay.
I don't have any new information since then.
Okay.
But in case anybody wants to know, it was the 75% of the votes said they want another middle school option. 75% said they would send their kid to a K-8 charter school. The most important reason for sending your student to a K-8 charter school is their curriculum. Then the next option, their next favorite option was choice of electives. The next favorite option was a foreign language. And then all the rest were pretty even. School location, followed by after school sports, followed by small school size, followed by PE every day, followed by actually PE every day and band orchestra tied at the moment anyway.
Thank you. And then facilities. So the landlord said he's been just doing short-term leases with the other tenants because we've had such a long continued interest in expansion. He wouldn't want to give any tenant notices or start renovations until our program is approved by the state though. So he said a fall of 2021 date for the space is leaning towards more not feasible, but fall of 2022 definitely would be. He would have to do like possibly zoning and permits and the construction And then we had tossed around doing adding a 7th grade classroom and an 8th grade classroom, maybe an extra classrooms or smaller than we have multi-purpose room, so that they had a space for maybe some of the elective stuff or a separate lunch area. And then possibly hallway space that had lockers or half lockers, so they get that kind of experience going out to a passing time between some of the classes and using a locker and being back in class on time. If we were approved to start it and couldn't have the space ready by the fall of 2021, an option might be to use the technology classroom as a temporary classroom for 7th grade, just for next year. And then hiring a technology teacher, just since we currently don't have one, and teaching that in the grade level classroom by the technology teacher using a Chrome cart. Deanne sent out budget numbers for everyone to look at. I don't know if you want to touch on those, Deanne. You're muted.
Mindy, if you would unshare your screen.
A second. Did I unshare? Stop share. I got it. I figured it out.
Okay. Let me see where the budget is. I'm
Is
going
it the one
to.
that's green and yellow and says draft on it?
It is. Do you have that one?
I do.
So I did get some preliminary information from OMB based on, so you'll see what we're currently living in, what we had approved in the fall in December to send to OMB for next year. And then I did projections for a different 2021-22 with an added 7th grade class. And then for 22-23 with the 7th and 8th grade class. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, Mindy, there we go. So this was meant to show you what the ADM would be for 26 6th graders and 11 7th graders. And then the next year would be 26 6th graders, 26 7th graders, and 11 8th graders. Okay, and so those were the numbers, and the 2,372,565 for the 202 students to add a 7th grade next year is a projected budget based on what the current base allocation is from the state. And that's what we anticipate getting for next year. We don't know yet what the legislature is going to do as far as their state budget for education this year is. And then, I did the projection for the 2022-23 school year based on what our current base allocations are. So the current funding formula. And so based on that, what I did was I projected staffing. So Mindy, if you go all the way up to the top page. you'll see that I added one additional 0.6875 TA. So not a full-time TA, but a 5.5 and a half hour a day TA. And then one full-time teacher. And I based that full-time teacher kind of on a teacher that we already have on staff. And then I just doubled that for the year to add a 7th and 8th grade in 2022 and 23. These are based on current negotiated agreements. I know that the teachers' negotiated agreements for AEA expires this year, and they'll be in negotiations. So I don't know what will actually be incurring as far as expenses for 2022, 23. And the same as for totem. So it could be higher, it could be lower. It's just based on our current salary schedules and step increases for the following years. And I also did our benefits portion. So the bottom section right here, Mindy. I projected benefits out for 2 years on the differences. And so the line that I think people are always interested in is, what do we have left over in our budget to throw in our unallocated at the end of the year? And that is what the highlighted line, what is it, 3980 would be. Okay, so I balanced on the bottom. And then if you scroll down a little bit further on, keep going, this page right here, stop. On line 3200, I didn't increase our lease space by more than 1%, because generally if we do a year extension, it increases 1%. So I did that for the next school year, even though we already did it for our budget that we're projecting to OMB for this year. But I did do a 35% increase for assumed space and also build out, any build out that we would pay for tenant improvements to make the space usable for us. So I try to accommodate that in there. I think if you go up, can you go up a little bit, Mindy? Probably on the top page. Right here. Under the unallocated, the 4040, I left in there $43,000 for potential increases in curriculum and supplies for that. And that's just to purchase, 7th grade curriculum, textbooks and things like that. And then another amount for the next school year. What the budget doesn't include is increases in potential staffing for specials teachers and elective instruction. So because we didn't have a schedule built out, and there are all kinds of ways of actually incurring those expenses. Depending on the teachers that you hire to teach 7th and 8th grade core classes, some of them might have additional endorsements that would allow them to teach the foreign language or the technology or home ec, whatever that is. Or if we don't have that, we would have to increase costs of potentially some of our specials teachers if they're available and able to increase their current FTEs, or if we're going to have to find a teacher and pay them on addenda from another school if they're part-time at somewhere else. So those kinds of things are unknown variables right now that I just wasn't able to fit into anywhere in our budget. I also didn't include in our budget any increase for the purchasing of things like desks and chairs, lockers, those sorts of things. Did we want to wait till later to ask questions, or when that becomes part of the discussion?
What was
I mean-
the last thing you said?
I was going to say that would be, oh, sorry.
My internet kicked me off again.
So are we at the point that we are ready for Casey to make her motion to open a discussion?
I think so. Yeah. Yes.
All right, Casey, make your motion.
Is this my moment? Okay, I
Yes,
would like
this
to
is the
motion
moment.
that we move to discuss this. The 7-8 expansion plan, schedule, and budget.
I'll second.
All right. Fire away, whoever wants to talk first.
Do we have to approve the motion?
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I forgot. Roll call vote. So the motion on the table with a second is to discuss the 7-8 expansion. Jennifer,
Yes.
Mindy,
Yes.
hold on, and Casey,
Yes.
and Missy,
Yes.
and Cheryl.
Gave a thumbs up.
Okay, she says yes. And Paige.
Did you hear me say yes?
No, but we did now.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to put my AirPods in now that I'm home.
Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, now yes. Okay. So, all right, and I am a yes as well. Okay, now someone can talk.
I wrote down a lot of questions I had. I don't know if you just want me to start asking or we want to do it in any kind of systematic order.
I was along those lines wondering, like, is there, if we could establish I don't know, it's like, here are the goals, here's what we would want to do. I mean, is there a way to maybe go top down a tiny bit as opposed to, I mean, I don't even know how to pick apart a budget or a schedule or the pros and cons. At this point, what I might be able to do is say, have a discussion about, we are doing this, like our objectives with proposing this are as follows, and we think we can or cannot meet the objectives with the proposed budget, or because I feel like all these things are just going to be a little bit in flux, until it is approved, and then you could really muscle down on, do I swap classes or not? So, I don't know. I mean, as far as a
Deanne, do you have a recommendation for how we should go through it?
Yeah.
So the process right now is we have a placeholder in the ASD school board meeting for next week. There is a memo that is in draft form from the charter school supervisor to the superintendent and her cabinet. Part of that memo requires us to add some information, and I shared with the committee that information. There were three things. One was they wanted to know how the 7th and 8th program would fit into our current curriculum, which we already have approved by the district through our charter. So they wanted to know what the curriculum would look like for that. They also wanted to know, so it was curriculum. What were the other two? Do you remember, Vanessa?
Why we want it,
Why we want to do that,
and how it would how we would fit it in our existing facilities.
yes.
I wrote my part for how our curriculum continues in language arts, math, and social studies. But I didn't go science because I didn't know what we were doing for sure.
When the district does approve charter changes, they're ultimately looking at how do these changes impact your program? And they want to know, how do we know it's going to be successful? Ultimately, they want to make sure that our charters are successful, and that we've thought about all things across the board: curriculum, facilities, staffing, financing, budget, all of those sorts of things. And then is this true to the spirit of our charter? So some of the things that I told the committee was that we're going to need to be ready to put our money where our mouth is. If we believe that we're going to have we want to have a 7th grade class, we should have the money to fund a full 7th grade teacher and a TA if that's something the board would approve also. And the committee also, discussed the topic of do we need TAs in the middle school classroom? What would the benefits be to that, and things like that? And I believe Vanessa and Mindy, you can correct, and Paige, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the committee recommended we continue having a TA, at least to the 5.5 hour a day standard that we have for the other grade levels. Because one of the things that was also talked about was if we didn't materialize a full 7th grade class, that we could have a split 6-7 and not have to incur extra costs for staffing. But that doesn't really show the district that we believe we're going to have a full 7th grade class. And so if we're not confident in our ability to fill a classroom, how would the district have confidence that that this program is really going to work when we do add 7th and 8th grade? So that was my recommendation, that we actually put forth a budget to them that shows we can support those positions. Because if we're not willing to put our money there, then maybe we're not sure, and how sure can they be that this is going to be successful?
Now, the budget you showed us, that is doing that. Is that correct? We're putting our money where our mouth is. We still have unallocated leftover. So that is doing that. That is showing we have the funds to support. Okay.
Right. And we want to start looking for those candidates as soon as possible. I didn't want to wait till July or August after the lottery to see, we do have a full classroom of 6th graders, and we are going to need a 7th grade teacher. The chances of us finding a quality candidate in July, and being able to get them training in the Spalding and Saxon and all of that would be challenging. So at least if we staff that position this spring, we'd have the opportunity to get that individual up to speed before school starts.
But we can't do that until after the June board meeting, right? The state board meeting.
I can start interviewing in anticipation of an opening, but I can't hire until it gets a final approval.
And do we know when in the month of June that meeting happens? Like, is it the beginning, the middle, the end? Do we know?
I think it's the 9th and the 10th is when it's scheduled for. It's on their website already. So I think it was in the first half of the month.
Can I jump in for 1 second? So I have a question about that relates to this. So, let me start. Where did the scope and sequence for the language arts for 7th grade come from? It says it's Spalding. Where did that come from? Where did those standards come from?
So the Writing Road to Reading, I believe, and is already in our charter, goes through K-8 with their like mastery, whatever. So that part is actually already approved in all of our charter documents already. So
Okay.
the other part that Mindy put together with like what the writing components would be and novel components were based on, I think, Spalding and also district expected standards. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. So then about the training, I've never had 7th and 8th grade teachers in a course that I've taught. So I would definitely have to check to see if that's going to be sufficient for training a middle school teacher. Okay, so that was my question about language arts. Should I wait for my others, or Jennifer, are you talking?
Sorry,
Muted?
I had a question along that same line, piggybacking off that. With that same idea, if we haven't had somebody who has been a 7th, 8th grade teacher with the Spalding philosophy and knowing that, and then coming in and implementing a new program, just doing the training that, assuming it works, that Missy's able to do, would that be really hard to find somebody that would be able to fulfill that need to be doing that in a new school, a new program, unless there are ones in the lower 48 that have already done something like that, that it wouldn't be as much of a stretch?
This is all new going into the middle school model with Spalding, so I'm not really sure.
And Spalding doesn't have a defined middle school model, do they?
Not that I know of, but I can get on that. I can actually call tomorrow and get more information on that.
I can solve that problem, I feel, though Paige will not want to hear this. So close your ears, Paige.
Don't even talk. Just keep your mouth closed. If what is about to come out of your mouth comes out of your mouth.
It might be easier to hire a 6th grade teacher and teach them the Writing Road to Reading. Let me go up with the middle school kids. I don't feel like when we go into the middle school model that we're going to necessarily be teaching, here are the phonograms, here are the sounds they make. I feel like we're going to be using the phonograms to dissect words and to work on root words and prefixes and suffixes. But I feel like the majority of the Spalding that we're going to use is going to be in the writing and the reading. using those monitoring skills and all the writing portion that goes with it.
Which would be the second course that
Yeah.
I teach. So, and that's going
Or
to be my
the
question
second
for
course.
Spalding. Would they be required to take the first course if we do have a new teacher, which we touch on that word analysis and everything in the first course, but it really goes in depth in the second course. So that's something I'll have to find out.
Yeah. Oops, I said it, Paige. I said it.
My next question, if I can go on, is about special education. Would we need another special education teacher? I'm not sure how those qualifications work. Would a special ed teacher be qualified K through 8? Or is that a separate qualification to have a middle school?
I believe special education teachers are K through 8. One of the things that we're going to run across is that there is a district expectation that middle school teachers teaching 7th and 8th grade actually do have endorsement in the subjects that they are teaching. So if you're teaching middle school math, you need to have a middle school math endorsement. If you're teaching middle school language arts, you need to have a middle school language arts endorsement. It is not, when you get into the secondary instruction area, teachers have to have endorsements in their specialty. So that can sometimes be problematic. The district allows people to actually be employed and work in that position for a certain amount of time to give you time to get your license or endorsement. And after that, then you technically become a long-term sub with long-term sub pay. So unless you have somebody who's close to that, you're looking at the possibility of having a hard time hiring someone.
Okay, wait, I'm confused now because I thought if I had a K through 8 degree and I took the highly qualified math test that I could still teach math. Am I wrong?
So do you have an elementary endorsement?
I don't know. My degree is preschool through 8th grade multidisciplinary studies.
Okay, so your degree is different than your professional teaching license and endorsement.
I don't know what that is then.
And I just tried looking you up in the deed public. Is your teaching license under a different name, Mindy?
No, it's always been under Mindy Edison.
Okay. So your endorsements say elementary education grades 3 through 8. So
So Deanne, are you talking about years ago when I had to go back and get my praxis or take my praxis to get my endorsement for elementary. So for middle school, you have to have an endorsement for math, for language arts at the middle school level, science and social studies. Is that correct?
there are middle school endorsements. Yep.
But are they separate?
Yes.
Or can you get, okay.
I don't believe there's a general middle school endorsement.
Yeah, I
And
didn't think so.
Is that a class you have to take, or is it just a test you have to pass?
It's a praxis test.
So going back to special ed, would we keep out, because I noticed in the budget there wasn't anything extra. Would we keep?
I didn't add an extra special ed, just because our current special ed program has such low numbers
Mhm.
that it doesn't, you don't see those numbers anywhere else in the district for per teacher. So I anticipated with just adding 672, is it 52 more students, that we wouldn't have a large percentage of those students having IEPs.
Okay. And the next thing, so we talked about the number of students. How does that affect our count? Like by a certain date in October, we have to have so many students to get our budget. How does that affect that when we are adding another grade or 2 grade levels?
So those are the numbers that I anticipated the budget for. So 202 students instead of 165 students, we'd expect 202 students. If we didn't materialize 26 sixth graders and 11 seventh graders, we wouldn't get that total funding down there. We'd be short just like we would any other year.
And so that would affect our whole school, not just that portion, not just the middle school per se, because it would be one entity.
Yep. Yeah. We're still one program. So the funding for middle school and the elementary portion wouldn't be separate. It's all together. We're still just one Eagle Academy charter school.
So how would that affect us if we could not make that 202? Would it be a significant detriment to our budget?
We typically, in the funding formula and how OMB came up with that, we average about $12,000 per student. And so for every student that we didn't materialize, we'd lose anywhere between $12,000 and $15,000 out of that $2.3 million budget.
All right, thank you. And I think that's all I have for now.
So is there any way to figure out like a break even? Like we would, I mean, ideally we would of course want to make sure that we had the full seats all the way across the board. But if we got to the point that we are short this many, we're just not going to be able to make our budget. Is there a way to know what that number would be?
Not until we know for sure how much we're willing to commit for expenses, for staffing.
Right. And I mean, because that's the other issue there. Can you not use some of this unallocated or the reserve funds to invest? I mean, I think EACS is going to have to invest, just like the district will be giving more money for more students. But this would be part of the investment package and the overall process, right? That it's just like funding any startup that I think it's going to work. We think we've got everything lined up, and we're going to have to put some of our own capital into it, and then put a timeline on it at the end of 3 years or 4 years or whatever your timeline is. Has it paid off or not paid off, or is it producing the equity that we originally expected, or is it not? So for me, it's a little bit hard to look at this as do we make money, not make money, break even, not break? I don't know how you would assess that, or how you could go into it really year one, not expecting to make an investment from the school's funds.
Well, I would expect to make an investment, but I would also like to have an idea of, we're going to be funding this position, this position extra. And so we know that if we are 10 students short, there is no way we can fund those. And that whole extra for those extra positions is all coming out of our unallocated. That's the kind of break even that I'm talking about.
Yeah, because along those lines, it would be, hey, we're willing to spend, say, $100,000. And this $100,000 will cover this additional. But I mean, but that is our that's our cap. And if we can't make it work, so it's almost as if, okay, let's look at the funds that we have. Let's determine what percentage of those funds we want to invest. And then you have to determine how feasible is it to recoup these funds, or what's the payoff we're looking for? What's the end game as far as this goes? Do we, is it going to be self-funded in 3 years or something along those lines, really? So yeah, I totally agree.
So you're looking at, if we do materialize our current projected number of students, meaning all of our 5th graders move up to 6th grade because they're super excited about us being able to offer a 7th and 8th grade in the next coming years. You're looking at right now $97,000 to figure out staffing for those elective type positions. Also furniture, things like that, without having to dip into your unallocated reserve. And still balance our current budget. I mean, the current year's budget. It's always hard to tell when you're first starting out. You can have, a solid plan and projections, but there are always things that are unaccounted for that you can't anticipate.
Well, the EACS is in this and has this incredible luxury, though, of something that many schools don't have, and that it does have the funds on hand to invest in expansion. Pretty much on a risk. It's a very low risk, and from a monetary standpoint, I think the higher risk is the teachers filling those roles, but monetarily, the school's in fantastic shape.
Has there been any research done? I know when Eagle Academy was started, we had quite a few years of grant funds that we received to get us up and going. Has there been any research on if there are grants out there to expand?
I don't know how it works in education, but from a business standpoint, if I looked at your books and I saw the on-hand capital, you would not get 50 cents. But it might be different in the education space, but that's going to be the first thing. It's like financial aid, right? Why do you deserve financial aid over, why do you deserve this grant versus somebody else? I mean, there is the idea, if you're starting an exceptionally different type of program, say everybody in the school is going to speak 3 languages by 8th grade, there's maybe a niche grant that would be possible. But if you're just looking at a general expansion grant, they're going to be thrilled with your current financial status.
They'll give us a pat on the back and say, do it yourself.
That's right. They'll say, congratulations. What else is this capital doing? Let's invest it.
Well, maybe we could get a grant from Spalding.
Well, that's what I would say too, though. Like that's why we have that fund, is to be able to do something like this. And I can tell you, if we'd had this fund 10 years ago, we would have already started a 7th and 8th grade, but they didn't have gone, this ago.
Right. You would have gone K through 8. Right.
Who was Jennifer? Oh, sorry. Did you have more questions for us?
Yes. At one point, when we were talking about expansion, somebody had said that they thought that we had to have a counselor for middle school. Do we have to have a counselor?
I think that that would be wise. The district also has part of their goals and guardrails that the superintendent will not operate elementary schools without a counselor. So the district was looking at how that was going to play out. And I anticipate at some point where we're going to actually have to look into how to make that work. So it might be a wonderful opportunity to, since we were already looking at the potential of having to do that, have someone on staff, just like we'd have a nurse for all grade levels, a special ed teacher for all grade levels, and a counselor for all grade levels.
And is that a full-time position as a counselor?
That the requirement for elementary schools?
Or middle school, since we're talking about going to middle school?
And that depends on your student numbers. So some of the charter schools are actually looking at sharing a counselor. But with our numbers, it would, I think it's just smart and prudent anyway to have a full-time person that we're not sharing with another school and trying to figure out when they're going to be on site and things, because you never know when things are actually going to happen.
Oh, don't even.
Okay. I wanted to ask a clarification about math. So are we saying that we will use Saxon all the way up through, but not sure about geometry?
Oh, I guess I am unmuted. I just had my hands available for algebra. I don't have a geometry Saxon, but they have it, so I'm not opposed to putting that in there.
Okay, but there is Saxon all the way up that we could do that at our school, and that's not an issue.
Yes.
And then what about gifted students in the gifted program for doing, I know that it's not the same because they don't have Ignite in the middle school, but they have certain classes that are deemed gifted classes. So what would be the plan for that?
Well, they don't have gifted in the middle school any longer. Their MAPS test and their PEAKS test now decide, along with their grades and their teacher's recommendation, whether they get placed in at grade level, above grade level, or below grade level in the 4 core subject areas.
Really?
I feel like with our leveling, especially in language arts and math, we already addressed that.
What about for science and social studies then?
I don't know. I don't have the answers for that one.
You don't have every single answer, Mindy?
I don't. I wish I
The
did.
College Board actually has pre-AP classes for the middle school. So we could look into that as a possibility for at least social studies.
And then we talked, looking at the schedule option, about teacher planning happening during PE or electives, but if the 7th and 8th grade teachers are the ones teaching the foreign language on PE, are they under contract to have certain amount of planning time? Because if they're just doing PE twice a week, and then
in the foreign language period, so that foreign language alone would be 3.5 hours of planning time. So we would be giving over and above, as long as they are not the teacher teaching the foreign language.
So is the contract,
at least what I could find in the AEA contract, was 4 hours still.
So it's not daily, it's throughout the course of the week?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because right now we get 4 hours on Friday.
Congratulations.
I'm sure you're not alone, if that makes you feel better.
Oh no, it's fine. It's working, but Monday through Thursday are tough days.
Yes.
And then I know at one point we had been working with Mirror Lake to do sports with them for our 6th graders. And they told us essentially our 6th graders were unwelcome to continue participating with them. So I didn't know if that would become an issue with our suggestion of encouraging our middle school students to join.
It is written in the middle school handbook that charter schools, it even said 6th grade in there. And I think the caveat before was that it specifically said in their handbook, not 6th grade. But if you're a K-8 school or attending a middle school charter school, it is in their athletic handbook that you are allowed to participate at your, what would be your home school in the district if your school does not have sports.
Jennifer, where did you hear that, or where do you remember?
Oh,
that
that's
from?
that's what they told us for years.
It was
So
one of
sorry,
the,
go ahead.
It was one of the years my kid, I think when Keith was in 6th grade, they encouraged it, and there were several students that would leave and they would go join Mirror Lake and participate in track and cross country. And at the end of that year, they said, yeah, we're not going to allow that anymore, I think. Or maybe there was another year after that.
I think that was mostly a principal decision, not anything else, because they wanted those students to be at Mirror Lake and not just coming to do sports.
And that's what I was going to say, is that when we were looking into this, it said that what Vanessa said about the K charter schools, that their middle school age students can go to the middle school for their home middle school for sports with both principal approval. So principal of the middle school and principal of the K-8 school. And Mirror Lake has a new principal since your kids were there. So hopefully that new principal will be a little more kind about it.
And what they used before to say no was the fact that it said it was a K-8 school and we didn't have the 8 part. So they used that as the reasoning to not allow us. So if we were K-8, then that doesn't make any sense anymore.
Well, and Alice also would still let our students participate. She's really student friendly, and probably part of the issue, depending on the number of students participating, was how they fund their coaches. They have to do that out of their own budget. So if we sent a substantial amount of students up there with no financial support for the supervision and coaching of kids, that could be part of the reason why a principal might say no.
I think it would just be something that we would want to, along this path, talk to the principals of those schools and say, this is what we're hoping for. Will you support this as we encourage students to participate in the sports at your schools? Just to help ease that road so that families aren't having to do that on their own.
Yeah. I'm 99% sure that we can work with Mirror Lake, 99.9% sure that the current Mirror Lake principal would be willing to work with us. I can't say the same for Greening.
I have heard that Greening is going to have a 6th grade when they open. Is that true?
I think that is their plan.
I've heard that as well.
So that's the other caveat too, is if they do have a 6th grade, then we either need to say now we need to be a K-8, or we're going to lose our 6th grade, period. We'll have to go to a K-5 school, because like right now we have kids that either leave and go to Mirror Lake, or they know that they're going to go to Greening, which starts in 7th, so they'll just stick around for 6th. But if Greening has 6th, then what keeps them at Eagle Academy, other than the wonderful Miss Edison.
And our wonderful whole program that we need to have 7th and 8th grade for.
Well, that's what I was saying. I'm like, if we don't have it, if we don't do it, then and Greening does 6th, then we are essentially killing our 6th grade. We're going where we will lose it. It may not be next year, but it will be in the very near future.
So when we are looking at hiring a 7th and an 8th grade teacher, and we're talking about these endorsements, and we're talking about adding a 7th grade first and then the 8th grade the next year, does that mean that we're going to need to find somebody who is, I had highly certified written down, but I think you said the term is endorsed for math, language arts, science, and social studies? And is there any rough idea how many teachers get highly certified or endorsed in more than one subject? Or even more than 2 or 3?
It is super rare to find teachers highly qualified in all 4 core areas. Generally, teachers will be in the secondary, will have like a language arts and social studies or a language arts and a foreign language. They'll have maybe math and science, the ones that kind of go together. Very rarely would you find anybody with both language arts and math certifications.
And how long does it take before that endorsement can happen? Like, is it, because you said that they can still be hired and be teaching it and be working on it, but is there a timeline? Like, do they have to have it within 6 months, or do they have a year, or and they're just getting paid long-term sub until they get it?
I don't know what the district's current time frame is for that. When I was looking at years ago, Alaska Native Cultural Charter School, they have a middle school program where their middle school teachers teach one, the 7th grade teacher teaches 7th grade, the 8th grade teacher teaches 8th grade, the 6th grade teacher teaches 6th grade. I think the district gave me 6 months. All that would be is a matter of them taking the praxis test and passing it. So you have to have that content area knowledge behind you to do it. Sometimes you have to take a couple of math classes to refresh yourself to be able to take the middle school math test. The middle school social studies test. It covers everything from geography, world history, US history, all of those sorts of things. So sometimes teachers have to take classes to gain that content knowledge. Unless you're just kind of super curious and are a history buff in general as your part-time.
This is what I was asking about in like the first or second, maybe the first with all the parents committee meeting we had, and you made it sound like that wasn't a thing anymore, that you had to have that, and that it wasn't impossible to find people that would have all or most or something of them.
So it's not a federal requirement like it was under NCLB, because
Okay.
NCLB required teachers to be highly qualified or certified in the areas that they teach. And if they were not, districts had to actually notify parents that their students are being taught by somebody who wasn't technically qualified to teach them. That doesn't exist anymore, but that is a practice that the district still follows. It'll be a lot easier if we had a 6, 7, 8 middle school program to find a teacher who had language arts and social studies to teach all of those subjects, a teacher that had math and science to teach all of those subjects, so kids could rotate and have different teachers. But when we're looking at building the program and we're only going to have a 7th grade teacher, how are we going to cover all of those content areas for that year? With only one additional body.
If they look for that for middle school, but do they still look for that for a K-8? Because that would have still been a thing, like when I went to Birchwood and had a 7th and 8th grade, but we had a 7th grade teacher and we had an 8th grade teacher, and they might have swapped, like, I don't even remember if we swapped any classes when I was in 7th and 8th.
Right.
So,
But then do
that
you
would-
know what certifications that person had to have to be able to teach that?
sorry, say that again.
It's possible to do that, but do we know what certification that teacher and
I
this-
don't know.
Right.
But I'm saying if we weren't switching, then we would have had, somehow we would have found 2, actually 4, because we had a different teacher in 7th and a different teacher in 8th, and that was when I was in 6th grade. And then we had different teachers in 7th and 8th when I was in 7th and 8th. So we would have found 4 unicorns apparently to staff that 2 years in a row. So is it really that uncommon, or do you just not have to do that?
I can't tell you how they made that happen. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to skin a cat. Just like there's all kinds of ways that schools are finding now to bring back their students. So we can be creative, but if you want to save funding as far as how many teachers you're actually employing, it's a lot easier to find a full-time teacher than it is to find a teacher to teach 2 sections of a foreign language and another teacher to teach 2 sections of math or things like that. I can tell you personally, I would rather supervise 1 7th grade teacher than 3 part-time teachers that make up a 7th grade, because that takes more time for me to do observations and all of that HR stuff that comes with the job. So building the program is going to take some flexibility, so a lot of components of unknown, so we can get the 8th grade person in there, and then understanding what those persons' skill sets and what skill sets that person brings to the table. Then we'll know, what other things we're going to have to hire for based on the electives we want to offer.
And then going back to another question, if we're good to move on to another subject. So we have PE and health, and they have to have 1.5 semesters of PE. But we are assuming that they can just do that with 2 days a week and not have to have it every day, because that's what another K-8 school does. But for the health class, that would that have to be 1 full semester every day?
It is typically taught as a semester class.
I don't know, but my thinking is because 7th grade does PE all year, and then 8th grade does a semester in PE and a semester in health. And usually it's the same teacher that teaches PE that does the health class. That if we were just doing 2 days of PE for the first semester, then it would just be 2 days of health for the second. But I could be wrong.
At Mirror Lake, it was a classroom teacher taught health, not a gym teacher.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know that we have to. If the PE teacher is able to teach it, I don't know. And I don't know either, like, do we have the flexibility to do combined PE health or something like that?
It would also be interesting to know if we had to follow a specific curriculum, because up until now, when in 5th and 6th grade, we've done human growth and development, we do a very different program than the rest of the school district, and it's abstinence based, and that's not what the health program is. It obviously covers much more than just that topic, but The weeks that they cover that topic is not that. So I don't know if there's a specific program that we would have to use for the health program in our school.
I mean, I want to
Those-
say it's like any other curriculum, and if we had something else approved, we would not have to use theirs. If it's teaching the content, I mean, otherwise we would have to use their health now, but we don't have to use their health now.
Their health is broken down into mental health, how to manage stress, social health, like family relationships and peer relationships, nutrition, making healthy food choices, physical fitness, exercising and lifelong fitness, substance abuse, alcohol, tobacco. Then they have their unit on human development. And then they have preventing diseases like infectious diseases and chronic diseases and disabilities. And then community health and safety, safeguarding the public, preventing injuries, and first aid. That's what the school district is doing. And I feel like if that's what they're doing, we can do the same. But just give our parents the option of the human growth and development portion, keeping true to our charter, that when we do touch on that topic, that it will be an abstinence-based approach.
Or they also have that you could opt out. So we could, I mean, you can still do that too, the permission slip, and parents could opt out of that portion of it if that's not what they want their kid to have.
Yeah, but even those other topics besides human growth and development, we cover in our science curriculum. Those are all covered in our science.
Deanne, if you're talking, you're muted, but I can't tell if you're talking.
If that still is true with the 7th and 8th grade science curriculum that you would like to use, that is something that you could actually write into the proposal for the academic plan to address health. Okay, so that could be, they would have over 7th and 8th grade the cumulative substance of all of those standards and expectations. And then they wouldn't have to have a standalone. If the district approved that plan, the kids wouldn't have to have a standalone health class. They could do that. They could add a separate elective for that semester, or have an additional option for another elective.
Yeah, that's what we already do for elementary, because the other elementary schools do have separate, like the health or social emotional learning, and we don't have separate.
So that would be something that wouldn't be just something like another middle school. That would be unique to Eagle Academy. And it stays consistent and true to the charter.
Okay, I have
But
another
Mindy, we would really have to show where those actually happen. Those content or specific topics, where those are actually being taught in the 7th and 8th grade science curriculum.
You're muted.
Yes, I know, but I don't even know what that curriculum is at this point.
Just add it to the checklist. One more thing to do.
I know.
Okay, I had another question if we're ready to move on to another topic. Sorry, I have my notes all over, so I'm trying to make sure I hit them all. So if we're talking back to the highly certified, endorsed 7th, 8th teacher, does that mean that we are paying that teacher more because they are endorsed in 4 subjects? They don't get any extra pay for being highly certified?
No, and when you get into secondary, you're talking about different preparatory things. In the secondary, they talk about preps, and they're not talking about a prep period. It means how many different subject areas you have to prepare for during the day. And so I would have to look into the AEA calendar and see what that says for middle school or secondary teachers. Because it would be kind of cruel for a principal to say, okay, you teach one section of biology, one section of trigonometry, one section of US history, and one section of British lit. I think a teacher would flip their lid, being expected to teach those 4 subjects a day. Although our elementary teachers teach those
What?
4
Different.
subjects.
I do that anyway. Come on, bring it.
I think it's the rigor and complexity of the content at those levels that are a little bit more challenging.
I guess they haven't been in my 6th grade class before.
Yeah. So the expense for teachers, whether or not they're full-time or part-time, and again, where they fall on the salary schedule with their education and years of service in the district.
Okay. And then my other question is one that we come to over and over again as we talk about space in this school is parking and playground. And if we're adding an extra 50 students, we're not really having any extra playground space. And ideally, we would be taking over more of the building, which would theoretically give us a few more parking spots. But we always come back to that as a very negative point of this facility space.
But do any of the middle schools have playgrounds?
They don't have playgrounds, but they have playground space that they're still
That
kicked
they can't
outside.
use?
Why can't they use it?
The last time, so when Josh was there, they were only allowed to go out to where the buses park. They're not even allowed to go outside on the fields where they have PE because they're having PE classes there at the same time. So most of the kids just stay in the lunchroom.
At which school?
Mirror Lake.
My kids were told that they had to go outside. None of them were allowed to stay in the gym, in the lunchroom. So Rachel got a library pass and would go to the library because that surprises everyone. But
I was going to say what?
but they had the basketball area outside, and that was where at one of the parent nights, they said all the kids had to go outside to the basketball area, whether or not they played, they still had to go out there. You're muted, Deanne.
As far as facilities, we can work with Sean. He would be happy to give us the entire building. I mean, not give it to us, lease it to us, and work out tenant improvements. I believe he already has sketches for, what a gym would look like, and then turning what our current gym is into like a lunchroom, and building out an art room and maybe a science room that has, depending on how much the school wants to invest in facilities, things like a hood, and lab tables for science, things like that.
And we
Until
did
we
even have plans from before when expansion was looked at that had phased in adding horizontal growth too. So there are
Yeah.
plans that were drawn for that.
Right. The thing that I see constantly always being an issue, even if we assume the whole building and the parking lot is totally ours and we don't have to worry about sharing it with a preschool and things like that, will be with the increased number of students, how long it takes us to do a drop off and pick up. And I know that when we get back to pre-COVID type situations, it won't necessarily be in as much as of an issue because we can even stagger. It won't be fun for families that have elementary students and middle school students, but we could stagger drop off and pick up times for that. I don't think Roca has staggered times. Polaris, I know, doesn't have anything majorly different, but it could be a little bit of a challenge if you had like a fourth grader in the elementary and a seventh and eighth grader to have to come at different times to drop off and pick up kids. Or we can just allow those kids to hang out in the building until their siblings need to get picked up.
So Jennifer, can I jump in? Because I have a question to go with that.
Right.
So I know you said that they're willing to, give us some or all of the building. What kind of commitment will we have in our lease? Because I'm sure if they're going to renovate to accommodate our needs, they're not going to just let us go for a year. So do you know what the commitment will be on the building?
Vanessa, did you talk with Sean about long-term lease?
I didn't talk with him about long term. I know that he's done 5-year leases for us. He said he wouldn't want to make any major improvements on what we have or the expansion part. At least 3 years he would want. I'm guessing if we wanted to take over the whole building, he would want a longer, like 5 to 10 year, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But he did say, yeah, for any he would do a 1 year for the space that we're in. He would continue doing that. But if we want any improvements for the space that we have and the expansion part, then he would want something 3 to 5 year.
Is there a capacity code for like how many people are in the building and number of bathroom spaces?
Yes.
So,
There would be municipal code.
so when do we know when? Because if we're talking about adding 7th grade, would we hit that point before we would be able to expand and have more space for bathroom?
That's a really good question. I did not actually look up what the code is for the number of students in our building and the number of actual toilets that we need to have. So I can do some research in that.
I don't know that either just for adding 7th grade, but I do know that in plans that have been done before with just adding like a 7th, 8th expansion, that bathrooms were part of the plan that was drawn.
Yeah, and I remember seeing those. I just didn't know when we would hit that point, if we filled full 6th, full 7th, if we would be over that capacity and have to have that space already. And then just because it was in the public input, I think it was Heather Caldwell brought it up about her suggestion of it made more sense to her to expand laterally instead of vertically first. increasing the elementary grades instead of 7th, 8th. Is that something that we want to talk about now, or that this is kind of where we're at first?
Yeah, I had a question along that lines too, due to the fact that when we made our goals last year, that's what we had talked about, expanding laterally and then moving on up. But of course, then that would take building space.
It wouldn't take changing the charter though.
No.
Parts would, our head count or our contract with the district has a capacity and total student count. So it would require parts of it, actually.
Yeah. There are
Not to the extent, though.
There are 2 other charter schools that are going to ask the district to increase their total enrollment capacities for. They're actually on the board's agenda also. But that's a pretty easy explanation. It doesn't necessarily require the extensive plan.
It
And we-
probably would not need to go to the state for just a head count change.
Yes, exactly.
So I think the answer to that question goes back to what Casey said originally in the very beginning, is what is our goal with this, and working from up here, and then all of the details can be hashed out. But what is our purpose, our goal of wanting to add 7th and 8th now, as opposed to like adding in K, more of the lateral growth?
Well, I guess I would go back to Paige's point on if Greening is opening a 6th grade when they reopen, by the time we could expand enough horizontally, because you're going to want to start with the lower grades rather than K6 right away. By the time that happened, we may have already lost a 6th grade program and may not be able to get back up to the ability. It would take longer to get there. So if we didn't do a 7th and 8th grade in the next couple of school years, we might not ever get there. And then we're going to have to go to personal want for Paige and I. Our kids are coming up on 7th grade. But not just Paige and I. There are other parents, and I think a lot of parents in the 5th grade group that we have that do want this option.
I would say too, with our recent experience with the COVID scenario, right, where choices have become so much, there are a lot of choices on the table now for people, I mean, that they might not have thought of before. So I think the idea of, I just think psychologically it would be, it's not as out there for this school to be offering a K through 8 while Mirror Lake and Greening are nearby at all. I mean, I think it's another option that doesn't require a huge influx. It doesn't require your community to grow by 10% to justify it per se. You already have the head count. We've seen that from the Greening numbers. Even if they enlarge their school, I mean, that's a big school. That'll be a big school for kids, and it'll. Because I was just thinking about, do we need to look at, say, the growth of the community, or the growth of the military, or but I think the head count is already available just based on school sizes and capacity numbers that have already been looked at by the district, not this year, but last year, particularly with the middle schools. And the other issue too, for what it's worth, is that the Army and Air Force have both really committed to significant increased investment. And I think some announcements will be rolling out in the next couple of months you'll see there will be a dramatic uptick in the number of people from the Army in particular being shipped to Alaska, or being not shipped, being marched to Alaska. Assigned, right, that one. Yeah, so I don't, because that's another, like if you're looking at just the numbers and monetary investment, you're always worried about, do we have the capacity for growth? I mean, say we throw the school in there, maybe there are not going to be 15 new 7th graders rolling into this area that are going to be willing to drive and do everything else required to go to it. But I think you're on pretty safe footing there, just based on current school load numbers in the district and in the surrounding communities. And then the issue with the lateral move, I don't know how you pick. I mean, how do you pick 3rd grade over kindergarten or first? Too. I mean, I just because then you're just going to exacerbate your long-term problem of not having a solution after 5th or 6th grade. Then you'll have even more students wanting a possible different offering than what you currently have to attract them to the school to begin with. I don't know. It's looking at the lateral versus vertical. K-8 is just a better selling story to families in general, particularly those relocating to this area, as opposed to investing in a school, and then particularly the charter school effort around no buses and once you've made that investment, if you can get people bought in, there is an opportunity to keep them engaged that you wouldn't necessarily have with other schools as easily, where transportation is readily available to swap out or to go other places, that kind of thing.
Okay, I have another question, controversial thing. What about the students that when they hit 5th grade, 6th grade, they're ready to be done with some of our Eagle Academy things like uniform and, like in the parent survey, hair styles, things like that? Do we feel that there's enough of families and students that would still be willing to continue on with that, and making that part of their educational plan instead of it being one of the things that drives them away because they're wanting some more freedom?
Well, like I said before, what did I say? Like 19 people said they would sign a letter of intent, and that was without seeing anything. Like they would stay with our school to keep doing what our school is doing. So I think if we can add in the component of, a locker and kind of a passing time, granted you can't roam a whole school, but I think the people who would stay in a program like this, I don't think they're looking for their child to roam a whole school. I'm certainly not. And, French Toast has other uniform options that we could consider expanding maybe for only 7th and 8th grade, but I personally don't care if my child has to wear a uniform. There are lots of schools in the lower 48 where their kids wear uniforms, and they wear uniforms even K-12 in some of those schools. So right. It's not outrageous for us to still do that. And they do go into like men's and women's sizes in the pants and the shirts. So it's not like kids would be stuck in little kid clothes sizes.
I had to wear uniforms all through school, through high school, and we couldn't color our hair, and we had very few spirit days, and it really cuts down the competition, and it really helps focus on academics. So if a parent is going to not choose this program because the child cannot color their hair, then
We're not the
we're looking
program
for
for
this
that.
program anyway. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
And you
and
can naturally color your hair, just not like blue.
there's summertime.
well, and I was going to say too, Deanne, you know, from Hawaii, and we came here from Hawaii, and the one school, one of the toughest schools, particularly for boys, was St. Louis School, and it is hardcore uniforms through senior, short haircuts through their senior year, and but that's where everybody tries to get their son into, right? Because the ultimate output can be significantly, more disciplined, a little more focused, a better idea of what one wants to do. But I think it's your mentality, right? I mean, this is the characteristic of the school, and the school is going to adhere to standards, and that's what makes it an alternative. It's not just another place where you could go to third grade. It's a completely different environment, and there's a different level of expectations and everything else. So that is what makes Eagle Academy Charter School special. And I mean, I think that's part of the attraction is the uniform. No matter what Max thought about it, I didn't care. I loved that he got up and put that red shirt on with his blue shorts, even when it was 18 out. But I do like the idea of the 7th and 8th graders maybe having flexibility. We went to a school in Georgia, and the 7th and 8th grade uniforms were slightly different. You could tell who the 7th and 8th graders were. That was the same way in Hawaii at some of the schools. They had like different tops or different, there were all these, but that's part of the package.
And kind of enticing when you're 4th grade. You're like, oh, I can't wait to get to 7th grade and wear that different style or different plaid pattern.
Well, and it was a great way too to really identify. So who are the older kids who are supposed to be showing some leadership? It starts establishing that there are slightly different expectations, and there are rewards that go along with, a more mature level of behavior.
I know it's a surprise, but I think that's the last of my questions.
Jennifer, I'm disappointed. I thought we'd be here for at least another hour.
No, other people could have questions.
Oh, that's true.
I tried to wait, so if anyone had one, they could just jump in.
I would just butt in, Jennifer. Sorry.
Go for it.
Does anyone else have any questions? Missy, did you have any more? Cheryl, did you have any? Casey, do you have any?
Well, I want to go back to the public input. So the survey and the responses to the survey, is that still being gathered? Or?
I think I might be wrong. We are not on the school survey, but yes, on the poll that Paige did.
Okay. So I'm just.
Yeah, the poll's open till I close it or delete it or whatever. So there's no end date for it.
Is that on your personal page?
I created it and put it on the Eagle Academy community page, and then Vanessa copied and shared it, put it on the PTO page.
Okay. Are any of those repeats from what was sent out by Deanne? Repeat parents doing both surveys?
I do not know the answer to that because the polls are
anonymous.
The poll is anonymous. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. It doesn't tell me who.
And you tried to post
are.
it on a neighborhood page too, right?
Yes.
Community page.
But I haven't done it yet. I'm waiting for my acceptance to that community page. That's what I'm waiting on.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So if
the Eagle River click.
If anyone else has access, they could share it. The only stipulation was that we said we should turn the comments and likes off so we don't start any like arguments. We just want people to either scroll past the poll or take the poll.
And then Mrs. Montclair's input.
Monker.
Monker, sorry. I was thinking of the pen. I don't know what. I just got totally distracted. I mean, so so she brought up some really good points that we've addressed. I would just, I mean, if there's a way to possibly involve teachers, you know, who have concerns like that. Okay, so tell us the best way then to, you know, is having a passing period. How could we, you know, because she was obviously very concerned and she listed quite a few things that she was concerned about. So just the possibility of involving her and, you know, we if the decision was to go forward and the district approved it and everything else, you know, whatever we could do there. So there's no alienation, I guess.
I mean, we do have a committee right now.
Okay.
And it's not just APB. So it's Mindy Page, Deanne and I, and then 5 other parents.
So that's fabulous. So it's 5 additional. Okay, great.
It's 6 actually.
6 other parents.
Okay, so that's just that community buy-in. Okay, awesome. Okay.
And Casey, when we talked about this at our staff meeting on Friday, I encouraged her to come and talk with me since I was part of the committee and I'm on the APB, and she did not come and talk to me or send me any kind of emails. So I felt like all the points that she addressed, I could have explained where we were and what we were thinking and why we were heading that way. So,
our committee meetings too are public, just like these YouTube ones. So anyone who's interested, they can hop on, you can watch and listen to the whole thing.
How did they find that, where to watch it or whatever? Because I haven't really seen that.
On the website, like these are on the website.
So maybe it would be a good idea to post it on like the Facebook page when those are happening, like, or just do these are when those meetings are, because like I don't go to the school website unless I have something specific I'm going there to find. So, but I get more news from the Facebook page of upcoming things or things to be aware of. I do read the newsletter, but once I read the newsletter, I may not remember.
You don't go back to the newsletter.
But she would like to emphasize that she reads the newsletter.
I would.
The one parent that does.
No, I do.
Oh,
I know there's at least like 4 others.
5, the handful of parents that read it.
I did come up with one more question. I know you're all surprised. So there are some parents that have expressed concerns in the past, or like when talking about joining the middle and the high school, of ages of students, of like the kindergartners and the 8th grade. So I'm assuming that when we're talking of fully getting the expansion and expanding into more of the building, that the middle school wing would kind of be separate from the rest of the school to kind of keep that somewhat separate, like the bathrooms and things like that.
That is what past plans looked like. So they would be more going to the side, to the right of the lobby and down straight back. So they would be like 7th, 8th. And I think they had bathrooms at the end of the hallway. And then I think they had connected it like where Mrs. Copping's office was. So you'd put an office on the side of the hallway and hers would be like a pass through to the other area. And then if they had their own multi-purpose-ish area, they wouldn't need to do lunch with the younger kids either. So there wouldn't be tons of cross with like the K-5 kids.
So was there, expansion plans of just adding like the church space next to us. At one point it was the quilt store, but the church now, and that's what would become like the 7th, 8th wing. Like if you wanted to do
Think
it
so. I can't tell from the plans if it went further than that into the CrossFit or not, or if it was just that space right next to us. I couldn't tell.
because I think at one point we had talked about just taking over that first and doing that so that we could then grow. And then as we were able to make, like if we decided we were wanting to add the lateral growth at that point, we would start with the 7th, 8th, and then expand out into the rest of the building and then make like the multi-purpose room or whatever. So it would take up more of the building, but that way we wouldn't have to commit to the financial aspect of renting or the leasing of the whole building at the beginning and converting it. It would just be that and then adding on beyond that, perhaps.
Yes, I don't think he would expect us to take the whole building. Well, like Deanne said, he'd be happy if we did, but I don't think that I don't think that's what he's expecting. If that's all we're expanding for now.
It's something for the board to think about. If what is the ultimate goal at the end of this charter? What would you like the school to look like? You know, when you do phased in plans and expansions, right now we're looking at adding a 7th and 8th grade component. And then somewhere down the line, doing the lateral and adding another set of K through 6 classrooms. When you're planning out the facilities and buildings, you want to be really careful in how you do that, because then you're going to spend some money reconfiguring spaces that have already been built out for one thing. Because if you did that, if we had another set of K through 6 classes, we have all the space that we already have, and then we'd have kind of a middle school in the middle, and then on the other side of that, we might have to put another K through 6, and it doesn't make sense to have a setup like that. So
it's a middle school in the middle. When I was talking to Sean, he did ask if we would need connected space or unconnected space. So I think if that was something we wanted to consider, building out at the other end and then inward, if that's a direction we wanted to go, I think he would be willing to work with us on that too. Just a thought.
So in my experience, when I was in Angoon, I actually had a middle school, high school in one building and an elementary school in another building. 2 totally separate buildings. So I would walk back and forth across the village multiple times a day.
I did not say that was preferable.
I know. I'm just saying, I'm being just a little bit selfish, coming from an administrative point of view, trying to figure out how this is going to work, because you do have a different mentality of kiddos. I taught in a 7-8 middle school standalone with 2,000 students in Hawaii, and they're really cool, fun kids to work with, but they are not like your primary elementary students. They do have a different mentality. And I've also worked in lots of K through 8 buildings or K through 12 buildings where there's elementary, middle school, and high school in the building. And they do work really well together, because the older kids like to look after the younger kids, and the younger kids do really look up to the older kids. So you do find that the older kids strive to be role models. Not all of them. There are some that strive to be other things. But I wouldn't think in a program like Eagle Academies, where it's where you do have a lot of that patriotism, self-responsibility, talking about excellence and character. I don't think we'd have that much of an issue. But you do want to also consider what adding the 7th and 8th grade, how that would impact the entire program, because there would be an impact to the program overall. It would just look different. And so when, to Casey's point of view, it would really behoove the committee and the APB to engage all of the teachers, because life will look different for all of the staff members in the building. And it would be really helpful to get everybody on board and moving in the same direction.
Vanessa, do you think you have a copy, or Deanne, of the blueprint of the building? Of, just because for the point that Deanne's making, it makes more sense to add it on sequentially, but like I said before, I don't really want to make that financial commitment up front if we know that we're not going to be filling the whole building yet, or having the finances to fill the whole building yet. But knowing what would make sense to ask for, can we have this space or this space? And if it would make sense for our growth pattern.
I don't have the whole building. The plans I have were only for what area would be expanded into, so it doesn't go the whole thing. Looking at what I have for what looks like horizontal expansion, because it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 classrooms, looks like it would go, oh, I can't tell. Maybe it would go over through no, I'm still not sure. Okay, wait, that's our classroom, that door. So maybe through the CrossFit is what it looks like, I think.
Vanessa, I made you a co-host, so if you wanted to share your screen, or if you could share your screen.
Oh, hold on. I'm looking at a different screen. I have 2 computers going.
Oh, okay.
But hold on, I can pull it up if someone wants to say something else while I do that. You're welcome to.
Well, the other thing I was thinking about is, well, what if we took, where the art and kindergarten and 2nd and 3rd grade hall is, what if we made that the 7th and 8th grade, and then expanded over with the K through 5 grades, and that way if we were going to expand more, all of that would be together, and the 7th and 8th grade wing would be on the far end. I mean, it's just a thought.
It's a good thought.
I'll let you tell Missy she's going to have to move out of her classroom.
She's going to want to move out of her classroom because she's going to get a bigger and better and brand new classroom.
Well, I was thinking art would be 8th grade, kindergarten would be 7th grade, and then I could just stay where I'm at.
Oh, there you go. See?
Weren't you just saying, Missy, that you wanted to like clean out some stuff and get rid of some things? So I mean, that would just be the perfect excuse for you to do that, is having
That
to
would
move.
That would be forced to clean out. Remind me not to tell you what I need to do anymore, okay?
Oh, that was fun.
So as far as these meetings go, so what do we need to accomplish at this one, and then at what needs to be accomplished at each meeting to move forward or decide no?
So this meeting is really we were bringing what the committee had come up with to
Okay.
everybody here so that you can have the information, you can ask questions tonight, and you can think about it between now and Monday, and maybe
Okay.
send emails asking more questions because we have another committee meeting tomorrow night.
Okay.
And then Monday will be the APB's deciding factor. Yes, we're going to move forward with it, or no, we're not going to move forward with it.
Okay, so between now and,
And
then,
it can even be, no, we're not moving forward with it right now, but the committee could still work on it and we could bring it back to implement the next year. So it's
Okay.
not dead in the water forever.
Right. And then you do have a meeting between now and then. So people who are listening or participating, they can still provide public input after hearing all of this to the planning committee. So that's fantastic because they'll have quite a bit more information to work with.
Or at our Monday
Okay.
meeting. They can also
Okay.
public input at our APB special Monday meeting.
Okay.
So while Vanessa's still working on that, Missy, for the Spalding certification, if we were going to be Spalding certified and we were going K-8, would we have to then have a 7-8 Spalding certified teacher also, or would that fall in the 4 to 8?
No, they want a Spalding accredited teacher every couple grade levels.
Well, if Mindy became the 7th grade teacher and she was Spalding certified, and then Judy or Stacy wanted to, then it would still be covered.
You're saying it's is it every 2 you said? So it's like K1, 2, 3, 4.
K1, 2, 3, and then 4 through 6.
Okay. I think I have my screen ready to screen share.
Okay. So on your bottom menu, there should be in the middle something green that says screen share with an arrow pointing up. There you go.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. I can zoom in. So this was one option of a 7-8 expansion that they had done. So this space is our current space. And then I think that this is just the church space, but there's like a lot of doors in here that I'm not sure what they are.
Those are 2 really large classrooms.
They are very large.
And I want that. I want the biggest one of them. I think it's the back one that looks bigger. Maybe it's the front one.
Hold on,
Mindy, you're
there's-
teaching
let's
6th
see.
grade, so none of those would be your classroom.
No,
You can
I
have
know.
4 more square feet over here. That's it.
But I would like to be closer to the bathroom, so I might have to just do without.
Okay, so that was one. This was another. So that was 3 classrooms, bathrooms, same area, obviously smaller classrooms. Those are really big.
762.
What are the current classrooms?
Let me grab that. I have that somewhere.
Well, I think I only have like 12 square feet in mine.
That's where your desk is.
Yeah.
6th grade is currently 750 square feet.
Oh my gosh, I wouldn't know what to do with an extra 200 square feet.
You're not going to know what to do because you're teaching 6th grade.
I was about to say the same thing. You're not even going to need to worry about it.
And then there was this floor plan option, which looks like 2 big classrooms again, but slightly smaller still. I don't know.
Maybe they have hallways
Maybe
around
that's
them.
what I was gonna say. I think it looks like they have hallway around them, and the other ones I think were just classroom mainly.
What
with
is
maybe
the
one
thing
hallway.
in the middle? Or I mean on the side that looks like Yeah,
Where?
right there where you had
This side?
your, no.
This side.
There. Yeah.
I think it's lobby coming from our lobby
Oh,
over into
okay.
here.
I just couldn't read the words.
Yeah, I think it's just open area. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, it's probably smaller for you guys than for me, huh? Okay. So that's what it
That
would
option
be.
looks like it leaves future expansion plans with the hallway around it.
Yeah. And then I think it is this one. So this was one, and it's color coded for a phased in expansion that's going over another area here, I think. So it's 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. I think this was the front space maybe of the CrossFit for a tenant, but I'm assuming we could also have that if we wanted it, and then full multiple person bathrooms over here.
Mhm.
If you can see, can zoom in.
Well, and if we assumed the CrossFit place, then it's already sort of set up for a gym. So that could be an additional gym space for our upper grades, or converting our current gym to just a lunchroom and having a new gym that's bigger on the other side where the CrossFit is. It's already kind of set up for that.
And then if you can see the phase 1, 2, 3, 4 on the side, can you see that is what the color coding? So that's what they were kind of like, okay, this year we would want this, and then the next year we would need this, and then this, and then this. So I don't know if he was if when they drew it up, if he was able to say, yes, we can do this part here and this part here and this part here, this part here. But just so you can see kind of what was looked at before.
That one would still not give us quite enough if we were looking at full 7th, 8th, and lateral classroom growth. We would still be
Oh,
short.
no, I agree. I'm just sharing the plans that were done before, and he said that he would be open to us doing the whole building. So
Did we give
we
him
could fit this before, and it was not the whole building.
Do you know if he saw these before, or if these were just within our committee before?
I assume that he worked with them on getting these. I guess I don't know.
I don't know if we ever got to that point. That I think he told us like this tenant is going to be out at this point, like their contract is up at this point and this one, and that was part of the reason for how it was. And he was willing to work with us to try to give us what we wanted to be able to grow. But I don't know if we ever actually took these floor plans with our proposed ideas to him.
Gotcha.
Just because we were still coming up with so many different ideas. And we were also talking about the, whatever the other school.
Oh, the
other
performing
buildings.
arts. Yeah.
We were talking about both of those simultaneously.
Can I
So then I don't know.
I'd like to make a recommendation or just something for the APB to consider. I highly consider that you assume more space than you think you will need. And at least 3, possibly 4 instructional spaces. Because if you only have 2, you're thinking a 7th and 8th grade classroom, but you don't also have anywhere in there for what your electives are going to be and who's going to be teaching your electives. Then otherwise you're asking teachers to share classrooms. And when teachers are sharing classrooms, they're going to want to have some individual spaces in there.
And truth be told, it would be so wonderful if we could really have a library in our school.
So you could turn our current gym in to half of it being a lunchroom and half of it being a library. Because that was one of the things that, that parents kind of mentioned in the survey was library. I can tell you, and Missy, you can probably even let me know if this is the case, but almost every single school tour or parent orientation I get, parents are ask about a library.
Yeah, I recall a couple asking.
But I guess to Casey's question, what do we need to leave here with tonight? And our Monday meeting, which is basically, are we approving a 7th and 8th grade expansion? And then, like she said, the district wants to know how, and the curriculum, how it's going to fit with our charter and the curriculum, and how it's going to fit in the facilities, and why we want it. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, I think we have a lot to think about. If everyone's okay with it, I move that we close this meeting to come back on Monday after we've had time to think about it.
Okay. Is everyone else okay with that, or does anyone have any more questions? Good on marinating on it?
If you have any more questions, think of, definitely consider emailing them to us before tomorrow evening so we can approach the committee with those questions and try to find solutions before our Monday meeting. And also maybe consider watching watch the movie, watch the meeting.
Will be that
tomorrow
interesting.
night. I know, it'll be so interesting.
What time is it tomorrow?
5:30.
4:30, 5:45.
Paige is coming late. Just kidding. It's 5:30.
I keep mixing up the two, apparently.
Is there anything specific any of the board members want to know so that we can actually address it at the meeting tomorrow or try to find answers?
Do you think that it's too premature to take it to Sean and say, this is what we're thinking? And would you be opposed to this phase-in idea that we would like some space, but not necessarily all of it at the beginning?
So you'd like us to have answers from the landlord on what he's willing to work with us on?
I think that would be very helpful, because if he's not really willing to make that work with us, then we have nowhere to go.
He already said he is willing to work with us, though, and said he's been keeping his tenants on short-term leases because we always want to expand. So I think he is waiting to know from us what we want and need.
Do you think
so? It's hard
to give us a full footprint of the whole building?
I don't know why he wouldn't.
Right. I was like, what landlord wouldn't want one tenant?
Right.
That's a better idea to kind of look at and plan for the whole building. If we're wanting to think, yes, we're talking about 7th, 8th now, but we would ultimately like to go further. And like was said, it makes more sense to do a phased in approach, so we're not having to redo work that we've already done.
Right. And that way we can engage him in maybe a 3 to 5 year lease. Once we do that, then he said he'd be willing to work with the architects to get sketches and things for what we'd like as far as a build out is concerned, because that's an expense on his part that he already had incurred the last time, and that really hasn't come to fruition. So he's a little leery, but he's willing to do it, I think, if we are willing to commit to him.
Well, and with that, if we're going to go to that extent, then we need to think about the playground area too.
I actually totally agree with that. that you might
Because-
as well look at, yeah, the top down, like if, I mean, because that's where I would start, right? In a perfect world, this is what we want. How do we make this a phase 1, 2, and 3 approach, or a 1A, 2, 2A, 2B, something like that? But ultimately, where in 10 years, if you could see this school, what is it that you want it to be and what do you want it to look like? And then, okay, consider this to be phase 1 of that. And based on certain metrics, we'll enter phase 2, based on certain metrics 3 or whatever. I bet you have to look at like, and I mean, or I don't, we have to think about like, can the PTO sustain the milk program? You know, just things like that that impact a school. And when you add on headcount, places where expenses have been cut or pushed aside, how do we really, because if you want to be at a certain place in 5 or 6 years with this K to 8th grade school with possible a couple of 3rd grades or a couple of 1st grades, what does that really mean? Because right now some things are done very fiscally responsibly, right? Like the PTO carrying the boat on a few things. And what if they didn't exist? Could we, how do we manage lunch? Because lunch will become a, you know, all those things.
The committee will endeavor to answer all of those questions by Monday.
Oh, my deal is, it's not even the questions, right? That's not what I'm saying. Is it would be great if you started from big picture and then say, here, this is 1A, but you know, to get to the big picture, we're gonna know all these things in 1A before we get to, yeah, we're gonna be considering those all the time. Like you were saying about the space, Missy, on the playground. For some reason, lunch, milk times really come to mind. I think because there was always a little frantic getting somebody to hand out those milks or whatever it was. So, you know, just those things like that will only increase. Like, look at your issues now, and or what do we have now that's significant that will only be exacerbated by adding on classes.
Yeah, because we've talked about this a lot, and we've, you know, even looked at other facilities. Now we're talking about making a commitment in this facility. So
Right.
is that commitment going to be able to take us where we ultimately want to be? Or are we doing this for a few years and then going to move on to something else?
Which is, I think, where oftentimes this whole conversation ends up, is that it's so many things built on each other, and it's the whole plan. It's not just looking at adding 7th and 8th, because we really have to talk about the whole rest of it and how that part plays in, even though that makes it way more complicated when we're looking at all of that.
I agree, because right, you know, with our waiting list, the past 10 years, we could have already expanded laterally.
Easily, right.
Yeah. So, but you know, to end this, I just have to thank the committee, because you guys have put a lot of work.
Right. That's why I'm like,
And it's, yeah, and it looks great. I mean, I know that there's a lot more work to be done, but I just want to say you guys have put a lot of work, and I, for one, appreciate it.
Well, thanks. We like having long meetings multiple times a week. And I guess I just have to add, it always comes down to this with the expansion, but then how long do we sit on not expanding horizontally, and then we never expand vertically? And then, you know, by the time people, like, I'm out of the school and Paige is out of the school, who's going to, so at what point are we just giving up? And I think this is mine and
don't give up.
And other parents that are like, no, we really want, like, we really want this.
Well, but I think now you should say, yes, you are fiscally capable of doing it 100%. You have the building. I mean, there is nothing about this plan that is a showstopper at all. I mean, because we've been talking about little details like the freaking schedule. I'm like, oh my God, what? Are you guys crazy?
Well,
That's like, yeah.
we're talking about
But
that
you know-
because that's what parents want to see, right? They don't want to hear,
Right.
oh, we're going to have some classrooms next door. They want to know, like, but what are you going to give my kids?
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Those are,
Yeah.
then to
Well,
me,
and that's what
like
the
you've already,
district wants to know too, is, what are
but
you
you've
going to
made
teach?
the decision. Then to my way of thinking, I'm like, then the decision's been made. You've said, okay, we're going to invest. We've got, I mean, I don't, but anyway, because we can nickel and dime these things all night long and all tomorrow night long and all Monday. But if you said, yes, we're going forward, if we decided that, then it would be landlord guy, get in here, help us draw up a nice PowerPoint presentation on expansion. I mean, you can start pulling in these other resources instead of you guys trying to, I don't know, blueprint stuff.
I'm just going to throw this out. One of my biggest fears with all of this for starting it this coming year, not to say that the next year wouldn't be possible, but to start it this coming school year is definitely the hiring the staff and having them prepared, making sure that we can get the staff we need that is qualified. So I don't know if that takes more research to see exactly what we need, exactly what their credentials must be, or what are the other K-8 programs doing with their staff, with their 7th and 8th grade? Are all of their teachers highly qualified? How many teachers per, how many students do they have? That just might be something worth looking into, because honestly, that's my biggest fear on trying to get it started in this coming fall, with the time frame that you guys are up against with the state and or the district and the state approval.
Yeah. Those kinds of things take a lot of time. And truth be told, I want to ask the board, where do you want me to spend my time during the day? Is it on instruction? Is it on supervising staff? Is it on figuring out a schedule? Because scheduling in the master schedule is the bane of every middle school and principal's behind. It's probably the thing that they hate the most. They'd probably rather poke their eyes out, trying to make that work. And then the staffing portion of that. I can build you a worst case scenario budget, but that would take time. And also we're gonna be doing Spalding certification next year, and that's gonna take a lot of teachers' time and energy, and that kind of takes a little bit away from their instructional focus with students, even though those videos are going to be working with kids. They're still going to have to be thinking about all sorts of things in addition to what they normally do. And Mindy said she was going to be part of that. So for her to kind of double dip on these things, she may be pulling out her hair, or she may not have hair by the end of next year.
Then she can just use a wig and be any color she wants on whatever day she wants.
No.
You could have a different style
That's
every
cool.
day.
A different style is okay, but maybe not a different color.
Just not
Right.
at school. But at home, she could be whatever color she
It could
wants.
be a brunette,
Yes.
and a blonde, and a red, and a gray.
So
Okay.
Deanne, was that your question for us? Like,
Well, how much do we want to bite off and do at the same time?
so you're talking trying to get this up and rolling in the fall compared to the following fall.
Correct. And so what is the cost as far as, where we're going to, there's only so much focus that we can do outside of working with our kids and making sure they're still getting that high quality instruction every day. I don't want to tax the teachers and staff so much that takes away from the ultimate goal of what's going on. If we're doing Spalding certification, trying to start a middle school program, spend the summer making sure that we've purchased curriculum and equipment to outfit classrooms or things like that.
So you're saying what you want from the APB Monday and the committee to also consider is not just approving the 7-8 expansion, but also a time frame or a year that we would like it to start.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anyone have anything else?
We find out what Greening is doing next year. Are they going to have 1 6 or are they going to have multiple 6? Is there a way to find that out?
I tried looking up even if they're opening and I couldn't find anything.
I figured Deanne might be able to talk to people that have more of an idea.
Right. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You know, all of these phone calls and emails take time from me being able to be in classrooms. And that was one of the feedbacks I think that the board gave me, was that you wanted me in the classrooms more. And today I didn't get into any classrooms, quite frankly. I think you all know why. But things like that just kind of happen. So.
Well, and also, you know, we just come off of a half of a year of online, and we're trying our hardest to get our students where they need to be. Not that it's been bad by any means, but there's a lot of work, a lot more work than if we would have had them face to face for the first half of the year. So that's, you know, another tasking that's not going to be over in the next couple of months. It's going to go into next year also.
Right. But I can definitely at least send an email out tonight. Vanessa and Mindy, if you, I don't know if Paige was writing up one of those responses, but I need to get that drafted to Daryl by the end of tonight or at least early tomorrow so he can get that to Dr. Bishop and her cabinet, because he's not sure what time frame they have for reviewing that before they agree to put that on the agenda for the school board.
Mine is typed up and I put it in the expansion Google folder. Everything but science. I didn't know what to do with that one.
Okay, but your little blurb for curriculum, did you email that to me?
No, but I can email it. I just put everything in that Google folder.
So you have a separate thing for that?
No, I put it in that one we're sharing, but I can take it and email you a copy of it.
No, I'm saying is your blurb a separate document versus all of your academic plans?
Yes, the blurb is a separate document.
Okay, perfect.
I got you now. I'm sorry, I'm fading fast.
I know, I am too. There's a lot of stuff.
I see it as a separate document.
Okay.
Yes, it's a separate document. Everything's on there. I just left on what we're doing in science now. But I didn't expand it for the 7th and 8th grade because I didn't know which way to go.
Okay.
But I did put in there, I did hear back from the science coordinator for the district. She told me what science they were using. So I downloaded a PDF of their program outline and a scope and sequence. I did put those 2 things in there as well.
Okay.
So if we decided that we didn't want to do this for fall 21 and we wanted to do fall 22, would we still be wanting to put it on the state board meeting in June? No.
We,
Okay.
we would have time to get it probably on the December meeting. So that would give the committee time to really flush out all the details and answer, get these types of questions answered, get a floor plan, get a lease commitment, things like that.
Okay.
All right. Anything else before we adjourn? If not, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I can make a motion that we adjourn.
There was already one on the table. I made it a long time ago.
Oh, then I
Well, then we
second.
had more questions.
Whatever.
Okay. Then adjourned at 8:18.
Sayonara, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.